Hey guys, let's see here. Okay, we are trying out a YouTube live on this channel. So we will see what happens. I'm going to make a couple quick announcements while I'm here. I'm not sure if everybody can see this. I'm hoping that it's public. There we go. Okay. Hi, Blob. How are you? Nice to see people sort of jumping on here. We're doing this today. Well, I'm doing this today for a couple of reasons. Hello, Wesley and Andrea. So nice to see you, Andrea. How are you? So we're doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously the channel is nearing 100,000 subscribers, and I'm super, super grateful. So I actually just wanted to spend some time coming on here and saying thank you to everybody who's been here from the beginning. And hi, Mad Rose and Laron and Chris and Kiki and Heyo and everybody. Hello, hello. Hi from the UK. Amazing. Welcome. So I just figured I'd jump on here really quick, and we'll do a couple more of these every so often. But I just wanted to take a few minutes today and first of all say thank you to everybody who's been here. I think I've been probably seriously uploading pretty much daily content or frequent content for the past, year and a half, 2 years. And the channel's grown fairly quickly for 2 years. And we've had just amazing people in here, amazing people in the community, amazing people as subscribers, amazing comments. It's very heartwarming to see the comments all the time. Hi from California and the Philippines. Amazing. Hello. Hi, Cody, South Africa. Wow. So just a huge thank you to everybody who's been here and who's been a huge support system for, the channel, for myself. All these different things. And what I figured we'd do for, half an hour or so today, if you guys have any questions since you're here, I will answer them. I honestly love answering live Q&A. It's like one of my favorite things to do. So if you guys have any questions, I know there's like a word count limit on here, but please feel free to post your questions. I'm going to share a little bit of sort of bonus content in here today. And two things that we are doing, as you've probably seen today, is we've launched a 7-day free trial, which means you kind of get access to really trying out the courses for free. You can cancel before the 7 days if you aren't into diving in, and like nothing's charged. There's a money back guarantee if you're accidentally charged and you don't want to continue. All of that's there, but it's a really good opportunity to dive into like some of our most popular courses, which are the emotional mastery and belief reprogramming course. It's all about like how to master your emotions and really like get emotionally regulated and reprogram your subconscious mind in any of the different areas of life, whether it's like relationships or career or friendship relationships or family relationships. I'm just going to give you a few that I think are really powerful courses. Our Discover, Embrace, and Fulfill Your Personal Needs course is a huge one. If you want to try that out for free and do sort of a deep dive into that. We've got really good boundaries courses if you struggle with that in your life. We've got courses on how to release resentment and properly forgive. We have courses that are in depth about your attachment style and how your attachment style shows up in each of the 6 stages of relationships. We have shadow work courses. We've got a course on how to repair any relationship, which really takes you through specific tools. How to heal from a breakup, which is a really popular one as well. And then how to heal the relationship to yourself. It's a course all about self-forgiveness, self-compassion, self-love. We've got codependency and enmeshment courses, attachment style reprogramming courses, all that good stuff. So many, many things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hello to everybody in here. So nice to see you guys. I'm just going to answer some questions for half an hour and sort of sharing some of the different things in here. So the first one I see is, and I'll do this every so often, so make sure you, if you haven't before, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because then when we do a little live webinar every so often, you will get the opportunity to dive in there and get your questions answered. Okay, so the first question I see that I'm going to answer is from Coco Martinez. Hello, how are you, Coco? So Coco says, Thais, any advice for people who are FA or even AP who begin becoming more DA as a result of having been in a relationship with a DA and find themselves shutting down and become increasingly more avoidant? Great question. Okay, so number one thing that can happen is we want to remember, like, our attachment style shifts over time. It changes, right? And how it's changing is because we have neuroplasticity. And so the subconscious mind is basically using repetition plus emotion to develop new programs all the time. So if you are completely secure and then you get into a relationship with somebody who's super dismissive avoidant or super fearful avoidant or somebody who's like narcissistic or anything like that, it's going to shift your belief patterns about yourself and about relationships over time. It's going to shift the way you get your needs met. It's going to shift so many different things. And that has the potential, if it's repeated enough for long periods of time, to actually reprogram your attachment style in general. So it's not uncommon that people who are fearful avoidant or anxious preoccupied, even when they're with somebody dismissive, start to feel dismissive themselves if they are not leaving that relationship or if the relationship is not changing in a healthy way. So there's some parts of it that you can take away that can be good from that dynamic. And then there's some parts that if you're in that dynamic alone and you're the only one working at that dynamic and the DA isn't there to show up with you, then it can become problematic and really painful at times. So the first thing you want to do is, I always recommend this to people, set a deadline. Like, know that, okay, if I'm finding myself having unhealthy shifts in my patterns of behavior, what I really need to be able to do is show up and make a deadline for the relationship to myself, where I say, okay, I'm going to pour myself into fixing this and do everything I can to show up for this relationship in a healthy way for 3 weeks, for 3 months, for 3 years. And really that timeline or deadline you pick should be dependent on how invested you are in that relationship. So for example, it's different if you're dating a DA for 4 months and it hasn't been going well for most of the 4 months versus if you're in a marriage with 3 children and a new house that you just bought with this person and you've been married for 10 years, right? Like it's a different dynamic. So you start by picking a deadline. And then really what you're trying to do is 2 things. Number one, from a healthy perspective, it can be a space to work on breaking down patterns of codependency. So you can get into a dynamic where you're going, you know what, I'm feeling codependent, and this dismissive avoidant maybe brings lessons into my life about meeting some of my own needs. So you want to start by getting really clear about what your needs are. Right. And this is one of the most important things we can ever do for relationships in general, because if we don't know our needs, we don't know how to meet them ourselves, and we definitely don't know how to communicate them to others. So we're going to have a hard time receiving them as a byproduct of all of that. So you want to get really clear, like what do you need to feel loved? What do you need to feel supported? What do these things look like very specifically? What do you need to feel like you're connected to somebody? What do you need to feel safe in a relationship, to feel empowered in a relationship? And get really clear about your needs and your love languages. And then really things that are going to be necessary for that APDA dynamic or FA dynamic is going to be, you have to communicate your needs all the time, see them through, communicate really clearly, really specifically. A lot of the times, and people are always so surprised to see this, but it's so true. And we see this inside of the school and the webinars all the time because we do them all over Zoom. We've got tons of like DAs in there doing the work and like having huge shifts, becoming really secure, sharing vulnerably in the webinars. It's really beautiful, honestly. And what one of the biggest things is if DAs feel like they're capable of meeting needs, if they feel like the needs are communicated really clearly, really specifically, really straightforwardly in like an honest way, dismissive avoidance can really rise up and like show up to meet their partner's needs. It's when they feel criticized, they feel like they have to shut down. It's when they feel like they don't know how to meet the need because they usually don't have a lot of like good emotional modeling growing up. So sometimes somebody can say, hey, I need to feel supported. And a DA is like, okay, I don't really know what that means. Or sometimes I'll see a lot, and I see this a lot historically in the work I did with couples in my private practice over the years, is I would see, for example, a dismissive avoidant learn that somebody has a need, and they come into, couples counseling, and the dismissive avoidant is told by, let's say, their wife, for example, I really need to feel more loved. And so the DA goes that week and, does lots of acts of service. They bring coffee to their wife. They, cook their wife dinner. They take out the trash. They do these different things. Meanwhile, what the other individual actually wanted was to feel like there was more physical affection in the relationship, or that they were complimented more often, or that, the person was more emotionally available and attentive. And so sometimes we'll communicate on a surface level about what the needs are, like, oh, I need to feel more loved. I need to feel supported. I need to feel connected, whatever it might be. And it can actually become really challenging because if the need is not communicated specifically, and what specifically means is you have to share not just what the need is, but what it looks like to meet it. I need to feel supported. And for me, support looks like, a lot more words of affirmation, compliments, showing up for me, whatever it might be. I'm just giving some random examples from different people. So you want to communicate your needs really specifically once you know your needs. You want to practice seeing your needs through. Sometimes we think because we communicate a need once that, the need should just be met and the person should never forget. And unfortunately, we have to kind of like reprogram people to learn about who we are and learn what our needs are. And that's part of one of the stages of a relationship. Like the dating and honeymoon phase or the learning phase, the vetting phase, getting to know somebody, getting to understand them, and then seeing if ourselves and that person are a good match in relationships. And then part of the power struggle phase, which is the third phase in relationships, is like really opening up, talking about our fears, our flaws, our vulnerabilities, and getting to learn somebody at a deeper level and vice versa. And then learning to how to like have empowering dynamics together. So the more vulnerability we have, the more we see our needs through, communicate honestly, show up for our boundaries, all those different things, the better that relationship will go. And then Coco, what I would say is if you find yourself in the relationship and you're like, I've set my deadline, I'm doing the work, I'm expressing my needs, I'm meeting some of my own needs, I'm seeing my needs through, I'm practicing vulnerability. And I would really make sure that you're practicing vulnerability in the relationship to yourself as well. And if you see that the other person isn't moving the needle with you and isn't showing up to do the work in the relationship with you within that deadline, then you have to leave because it can become an unhealthy dynamic. So it's super, super important to be able to honor yourself and say, you know what, if somebody didn't show up for me within that 3-month period, I was putting in the work and I felt like I was doing it alone, then, I have to know that I'm just going to end up becoming increasingly more avoidant. I can't work on a relationship by myself, and it may be time to make some changes. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense. It's a really great question. Okay, so the next question I have here is from P. Hello, P. How are you? Or sorry, P, you're after. So I see Maddie D first. So Maddie says, question, how can you help avoidant people to recognize their avoidance and deal with it? Okay, amazing question. One of the first things is it can be really difficult for the person who is avoidant to accept that they're avoidant. And a lot of the times this is more dismissive avoidant rather than fearful avoidance. And the reason this often happens is that dismissive avoidant individuals are often modeled to be dismissive avoidant, right? They have emotional neglect or they have very avoidant parenting in childhood. And so it's what they know, it's what they've seen. And on top of that, they associate, they tend to have really big needs for safety in their relationships, right? So what you'll see is that because they have these needs for safety, security, harmony, if those are the personality needs that tend to drive this avoidant individual, then when they see people emotional and they've shut down their own emotions to stay safe, according to them, right? That's what made them feel some form of relief in childhood rather than trying to be vulnerable and emotional with parents or caregivers who weren't able to support that, right, in their upbringing. So it just made them feel rejected and neglected. So they learn, I need to repress this part of myself to stay safe. And so as a byproduct of that, they grow up and they often have these emotional subconscious associations that say, so emotions just make me feel bad. Emotions make me feel erratic and unsafe. And so it's not even safe to feel emotions. And so when they see other people being emotional, they often associate that as being, unfortunately, weak or unsafe, or too vulnerable, and that, somebody's going to get rejected or get hurt. And so they have negative emotional associations next to their emotions themselves. So whenever we're trying to help somebody realize they're avoidant, one of the first things we want to do is we can talk about attachment theory, but we have to remember as well that a lot of dismissive avoidance, they tend to take things as being they tend to imagine that they're being criticized very quickly and very easily. They tend to perceive that a lot more times than they actually are being criticized. And so what you can do with an avoidant is you can share attachment theory and say, hey, look, these are the 3 different attachment styles that are insecurely attached. Which one do you think you are? And you can share a little bit about the anxious preoccupied, a little bit about the fearful avoidant, a little bit about the dismissive avoidant. DAs love to be educated on things. They like learning. They're very intellectual creatures, right? They've kind of cut off from their emotions. So they reside a lot in their mind. And so if you share things that are digestible mentally, emotionally, that tends to be really empowering for them. So what you can do is start by sharing some facts and then asking them, hey, what do you think that you are? And then when that information is there and it's, logically digestible, then you can turn around and say, oh, interesting, here are some other traits about dismissive avoidance. And then you can share. This is what I find to be really beneficial, really useful. It's honestly what I would use with clients in my practice. I would then say, okay, so dismissive avoidance, sometimes they can be cut off from their emotions because they think that their emotions are unsafe to feel. And that can be because in childhood, it didn't feel, safe or good to feel emotions. Maybe they were shamed for being emotional, like, oh, don't be a crybaby, oh, emotions are weak, stop crying. Maybe they just didn't have anybody who really nurtured or showed up for them emotionally. And as a byproduct of some of that stuff, we get cut off from one of the most powerful things we have, which is truly our emotions, because emotions are giving us feedback all the time. And emotions are giving us feedback. That's all they are. They are just a feedback circuit. That's all emotions are. They're giving us perfect feedback all the time, but not about the things that we think. Emotions are there to tell us if we either have a painful story that we're telling ourselves or if we have an unmet need. And if you think about it for a second, if we had an unmet need in any point in life, if we look back historically to, times where we were literally like, trying to just survive out in the wild, if we had a negative feeling, that was a really good thing. If we felt cold, maybe we seek shelter. If we felt hunger, pain, maybe we seek food, or we have to quench our thirst, so we seek water. So like pain emotionally is there to give us feedback. Hey, you have a need that's unmet. Now, suffering is the story we tell about the pain. So, for example, let's say we've been on lockdown, and let's say you live alone and you have the pain of missing human connection, right? Love and connection is one of our 6 basic human needs. So maybe you have this pain of not getting that connection need met. But then let's say you tell a story and you say, oh, I'm not getting connection met because I'm unlovable, or I'm not getting connection met and I'm never going to get connection. I'm going to be alone forever. Well, now you have suffering and you can feel the difference. It's one thing to feel the pain of not getting enough connection. It's a different thing to tell really painful stories and say, oh, I'm not able to get my connection needs met because I'm not good enough, because I'm always going to be rejected, because I'm going to be alone forever. That one hurts a lot more. And so your emotions are literally only ever there to give you feedback so that you can correct those underlying problems. And when we learn to see emotions like that and have a relationship to our emotions like that, and we realize, hey, our emotions are safe, they're actually just trying to communicate to us so we can correct those underlying problems, we really empower ourselves and we really empower relationships in our lives. And so I often share that with avoidants because it's super digestible, it's super logical. They can really break it down analytically. Once they've heard these are the different types of attachment styles and they recognize themselves in a specific attachment style, not you saying, hey, you're avoidant, which can really be taken like you are defective, which is one of the big core wounds of a dismissive avoidant attachment style. So once you position it for them and you say, hey, I think I might be this one. What do you think you might be? Usually they can take that in, feel good about it. And then when you proceed to share, this is one of the characteristics of avoidance. It's about, the emotions, and actually emotions are giving us powerful feedback. They're not there as something bad. And when we correct those underlying problems, the emotion shifts. It starts to change. We feel relief. Then all of a sudden it makes sense to somebody and they're able to usually step up and want to work on some of their patterns. So really great question. Okay, so the next question is Wesley. So Wesley says, hi, Thais. Why does someone being into me break my brain? I'm FA leaning DA. Okay, so here are a few things. It depends what you mean by break your brain, right? It can come in different ways. It can be break my brain as in like I'm unwilling to accept it. Sometimes FA leaning DAs, it can sort of come in a couple different ways, right? And I'm not sure which one you meant, but sometimes fearful avoidants who lean dismissive, when somebody is interested in them, it can just feel like overwhelming. And there are many different reasons for that I'll get into in a moment. But another thing that you can feel is like you can't accept it, because sometimes, one of the biggest core wounds of FAs, and FAs leaning DA tend to have this a little bit more than FAs leaning anxious, this core wound of like, I am unworthy. And sometimes when somebody likes you or is interested in you, it's like, no, I'm not worthy of this. And it's hard to actually accept and digest and take in. And then the other piece can be that you're afraid of getting too close to somebody or having somebody interested in you because you're afraid of losing yourself. Fearful avoidance, more than any other attachment style, have a subconscious belief that it's either them or a relationship with somebody else. Like, it's really difficult for a fearful avoidant to think they can have a relationship to themselves and a relationship to somebody else at the same time. And part of this is because fearful avoidants have a tendency to lean very codependent, right? And so if you're very codependent, sometimes when somebody's interested in you, all these subconscious pain points and fears can arise, not because it's not a match, or you may not be interested in the person as well, but actually because there's this like catastrophizing kind of fear that happens, which is, okay, what happens next? What if I like this person too? The expectations are going to come in, and I'm going to lose, my boundaries and my time to myself, and I'm going to have to be there all the time for people. And part of this is from two major reasons for fearful avoidance. Number one, it goes back to that wound of unworthiness. A lot of fearful avoidants, when they get into relationships, think that they have to like abandon themselves to earn their worth in the relationship all the time. So they always have to be on. They have to be the perfect partner. They always have to do the right thing, the best thing. They have to, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And number two, they think that they can't have boundaries. And so that boundarylessness, means you're going to get into a relationship and abandon your sense of self to be close to somebody else. And so the fear can come up, and all the resistance and all these different feelings of like push, pull, hot, cold, wanting somebody to be interested in you and wanting them not to be. And a lot of that just has to do with your subconscious programming. So really great question. So awesome, Mad Rose. Happy to see that. Heyo was up, says, Thais, will this Q&A session be recorded and posted on a channel? Just on this channel. It won't be posted anywhere else. Wesley says, are there courses for setting boundaries with other courses? There's a very detailed course about boundaries. It teaches you all about the different types of boundaries that we have in our lives. So our time boundaries, our emotional boundaries, our thought boundaries, which have a lot to do with like our opinions, our ideas, the way we perceive the world, our material boundaries, our physical boundaries, our sexual boundaries. And then we go into a little bit about like your financial boundaries, which fall into material boundaries. And then how these boundaries affect you in each of the 7 areas of life. And some of the really interesting things you'll learn in there are like, one of the biggest pieces is that we can get really clear about our boundaries, and we can do this big audit about what our boundaries are and like learn what our boundaries are in all these different areas of life. And that's a really good start. But we can learn about our boundaries, and then we can really still get stuck when it comes to actually executing on them. And usually this is because, there's 2 main reasons we struggle with boundaries. Number one, we've just never been taught them. We have no idea what they are. So we kickstart the process by like doing an audit of all the different boundaries. And then number 2, sometimes we have programming that says, if I set boundaries, I'll be abandoned. If I set boundaries, I'll be disliked. If I set boundaries, I will be a burden. If I set boundaries, I will be unwanted or unloved or rejected. And so sometimes, even though we know our boundaries and our conscious mind knows, hey, we need to set boundaries, our subconscious mind can really hold us back and try to pull us backwards, because it says, no, you're not going to be safe if you set boundaries. You'll be abandoned. So we actually have to do like some reprogramming around those boundary-oriented fears. And then what we have to be able to do is show up and then actually practice exposure work on setting boundaries and building momentum and doing reprogramming work in the process. So really, really great question. Okay, so the next question I see here is MS. Hello, MS. How are you? MS says, as I was falling asleep last night, I was thinking about how I'm terrified of things in my life being okay and stable, because I think people will stop loving or thinking of me. Is this normal for FAs? Really good question. Sometimes there's a couple things happening at once. Number one, fearful avoidants have a subconscious comfort zone of chaos. Usually you're exposed to chaos a lot. That becomes your subconscious comfort zone. And then no matter how much your conscious mind may want something, unless your subconscious mind is on board, you're going to experience self-sabotage. And what self-sabotage actually is your conscious mind having one intention or set of intentions and your subconscious mind having another. And your conscious mind will never be able to outwill or overpower your subconscious mind long term. It's not possible. It can reprogram. It can't just like outwill. The will battle is always lost to the subconscious mind by the conscious mind. So what can happen is sometimes you're like, oh, I want things to be stable. But then sometimes your subconscious mind will try to drag you backwards and stop things from being stable because it goes, no, or, we have to keep our familiarity and safety of this subconscious comfort zone, which is chaotic. And so sometimes it can be difficult for fearful avoidants to like get off the roller coaster. And sometimes the stories that will come up will be like, people, won't show up for me. I won't emotionally connect to people. So that's one piece of it, is like subconscious comfort zone. Another really big piece that's very common is fearful avoidants sometimes use chaos in their life as a subconscious strategy for emotional connection. So sometimes when you've got this crazy thing happening in your life, be it like the fight with your partner or the crazy thing happening at work, sometimes you feel like you have this really emotionally charged topic that's important to talk to people about that you love. And sometimes you feel like if you talk to people you love about it and receive some, they listen to you, they show up for you, they give you support, they give you feedback, that feels like a really big bonding experience. And sometimes when we don't have healthier strategies for emotional connection, and when we're used to this one because it's familiar, and then remember, the subconscious mind wants familiarity and wants safety, then sometimes what can take place is you can get stuck in these dynamics where you're going to people with these chaotic feelings, and sharing those with them. And that's actually, a way that you're getting that bucket filled for emotional connection, and you're afraid of leaving that behind. Okay. So number one, subconscious comfort zone. Number two, subconscious strategy for emotional connection. And number three, another thing that can happen as well, is there can be dynamics where we have these like fears of what if we change, right? If I change, people will abandon me. If I become healthy and stable, people will be jealous and won't want to be with me. People in my life maybe are in chaos, and if I'm not in the chaos with them, then I'm losing the bond to them. These types of subconscious beliefs can be in there too. And as long as you have one or multiple of those, that will also keep you fearing change, because you're fearing that you're fearing the emotional associations that you associate with change. If I change, I'll lose people in my life. If I change, I'll be different from the people that I'm around, and that can keep you really locked in to not wanting to change when it actually could be the most important thing for you. And what you'll see, honestly, when you do change, when you do heal, when you do become more secure, is that you actually just have better tools for connecting to people. You're clearer about who you are. You know what your needs are more. You release resentment from your relationships. You're more patient. You're more compassionate. You're more open. You're more understanding. Oh, am I still here? Okay, it said my internet connection was funny for a second. So all of your relationships end up just actually improving instead. Is the internet working? Yes. Okay, good. So that can be a huge point of actually building out that connection. Okay, so the next question I see here is, and a really good question, by the way, is Hakan. Hi, Hakan. How are you? Hakan says, as an FA, how can I resolve a conflict with my DAX without blaming him, but also demanding some understanding and responsibility for his actions? There's some broken trust to work through. Okay, great question. So, as a fearful avoidant, how can you resolve conflict with your DAX without blaming him? Really, really beautiful. So it sounds like you're looking to move back into the relationship dynamic and get back together. There's some really important tools for doing this. I would say the first thing you want to do is sit down and just have a transparent conversation with a DA. When you're having tough conversations, it's very beneficial if you start out by basically saying in different words, but basically the message you want to convey is like, I come in peace, right? Like dismissive avoidants are very conflict adverse. So if you can start by sitting down and saying, hey, I really want to have a conversation with you. I want this to have a really good outcome. I want us to share honestly in this conversation, but in a way that supports one another. Like we're on the same team. Let's have this conversation. We're thinking about like spending more time together, reconnecting. And I think what we have to do, and this really appeals this part because to the logical mind of the dismissive avoidant, I think what we have to do is we have to look at what wasn't working in the past. And then what we want to be able to do is go, okay, these things weren't working. So let's show up now and resolve those systems that weren't working and replace them with better systems. DAs love that. They love hearing about systems. They love hearing about logical things that make sense for how to, strengthen the relationship. DAs really value safety, security, harmony, systems, logical stuff, practical stuff. And so when you can structure the beginning of the conversation by saying that, you're off to a good start. And then what I would sit down and say is I would sit down and go, what were your needs that weren't being met? And I'm going to share some of my needs that weren't being met. And let's come up with strategies together for how to get better at that this time around. And then I would also say, what were some things that we wanted each other to understand that we were having a tough time understanding? What are some things that were triggering one another? And how can we show up to prevent those things from continuously happening the next time around? What do we need when we're feeling triggered from one another to help it go more smoothly? And I would bring up a few of those conversations. And I think that's the best way of doing it, because I think if you come and you just say, sit down, I'm going to tell you all the things that you did wrong and you better take responsibility, a DA can feel very criticized very easily. They perceive criticism a lot of the time when they're not even necessarily being criticized. And when they are criticized, the subconscious emotional belief attached to that, as you guys probably know from this channel, is I am defective. And it's a very painful belief to be triggered for a person. And so, you can sort of bypass all of that by instead opening a dialogue and saying, let's have this conversation. There's things we want to work through. Let's do it together. Let's talk about both of our sides, both of our parts. And you may see a lot of things come out of that conversation that are really enlightening. Like you may see that your dismissive avoidance says, maybe you come and you say, you know what, I felt like you didn't communicate consistently. And maybe your DA says to you, I got afraid to communicate if I hadn't texted you back for a few hours first, because I got afraid that you'd be angry with me. And so that's when I would just leave it for even longer and longer and kind of go missing for longer periods of time, because I got afraid of, somebody being angry or having a conflict. And then, you may go, oh, wow, so you have this fear that's a really solvable problem. I will make sure that if you don't text me back for 6 hours or 8 hours, that I'm in a space where I'm willing to receive that and be okay and happy to hear from you when we do communicate. You have to take yourself into consideration, what your boundaries, what your needs are. But you may just say, I'm pulling things out of just random examples I've heard over the years. You may just find out that there are really interesting reasons other than what you expected for why dismissive avoidants behave the way they do. And when you have that information, that's part of actually making it beyond the power struggle phase of relationships, is having the conversations that bring out the information about one another that become really powerful shifters in the relationship, because it allows you to understand why one another are doing the things that you do. And from that, you don't take things as personally, and you can finally come up with solutions to fix problems that are there, because you're actually talking about the root causes of what those problems are. So those can all be very, very important dynamics in here. Okay, so the next question I see, hi Cornelia. The next question I see here is Tashina. Hello, Tashina. How are you today? Can a DA become unconscious secure, or any attachment style, or will default always be attachment style, then you regulate? Okay, I think what you're asking, good question. I think what you're asking is, can they become secure over time? Or will they always have one attachment style? There's a couple things that can happen. So one of the first principles you want to know is that the subconscious mind tends to hang on to negative stuff more than positive stuff. It's a survival mechanism. It's, if you hundreds of thousands of years ago were out, in the wild and there was a predator by the tree, you don't remember how pretty the tree looked. You remember that there was a predator there, right? You're not going to look at, your brain's not going to remember the positive stuff. It's going to remember the really negative stuff, so it can save you and protect you from those things. So with that being said, if you're in a certain dynamic in relationships where you're feeling really secure from somebody, it is possible that somebody who's not super insecurely attached, not extreme AA, extreme FA, extreme DA, it's possible that they can be with somebody secure. And over time, that repetition plus emotion is what reprograms. And if we have healthy patterns in relationships for prolonged periods of time that elicit positive emotional responses, then all of a sudden, yes, we can have relationship dynamics where we do become more secure. But the vast majority of time, we have to do active reprogramming work to become secure. It's not very, relationships can become manageable and they can last if we have a secure partner in them. But the best chance of relationships lasting are if both attachment styles are secure and becoming more secure, because that's what really facilitates healthy communication, a lack of resentment in relationships, being able to bond more deeply in relationships, move the needle towards more unconditional love because we truly open up and share ourselves. And, one of the most important things is we think of like the power struggle phase sometimes as being the ugly phase of the relationship and the scary phase and this awful phase. The power struggle phase of a relationship is a beautiful phase. It's a really big gift to relationships. And the reason for this is that, yes, it's difficult, but it's teaching you some of the most important lessons. And it has the most important golden nuggets you can extract from a relationship ever, which are, you have to be able to open up and share who you are and share your fears and share your inner world with somebody. And it's only through doing that, because the power struggle phase, moving beyond it, the rites of passage are literally acceptance and vulnerability. And so moving beyond it actually requires that you show up, that you open yourself up more vulnerably. And when you do that, when you share what your fears are, when you share what your needs are, you share your boundaries, you communicate more honestly and more directly, you see your needs through. And when you learn the same things from your partner or loved one in the relationship, well, now you actually get to move the needle in relationships. From in the dating and honeymoon phase, we have a more conditional love. We have love based on everybody being the perfect version of themselves, because everybody's on their best behavior in those phases, whether they want to admit it or not. And so all of a sudden we take like this conditional phase of a relationship, this infatuation, and then as the infatuation sort of dies down, well, now we become vulnerable. We open up more. We build way deeper bonds, way more connection. We share ourselves in our inner world with somebody. And those are exactly the things that enable us to truly feel seen and heard and understood and more deeply connected. And it's only through doing those things that we actually feel like we can move the needle towards more unconditional love in relationships, which are really the drivers that allow us to move into then the stability, commitment, and bliss phases. And so, doing that work and opening up and doing reprogramming work and learning communication tools and expressing your boundaries, all of those things are exactly the things that help you become secure, but also help you feel more unconditionally loved as a person. And so the power of struggle phase gets a really bad rap. But it is just one of the most important things that we can really, really dive into and take the important lessons away with or from. So amazing. The next question I see here is Tereshina. Hello. I was just reading part of your question at the end there. Hello, Thais. I was one of the winners of the giveaway, and I am super happy. I'm so happy to hear that. Yesterday, I started the needs course. I made 2 on the trial. Thank you for helping me. You're a gift to this world. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy you won. And I'm glad you're here to share and to announce. That's super exciting. I saw everybody signing up yesterday from the giveaway, and because you can see when they enroll, like the free membership thing that comes up. And I was very excited to see that. So welcome and congratulations on starting your journey. The next question I see here is, I recently joined your community. I feel unmotivated. I don't know where to start. Start small. Sometimes when we have to look at ourselves, it's not uncommon that we start we get a little bit of fear that comes up, and the conscious mind, really can want all these different things. The conscious mind can want to work hard to start that new business, work hard to start eating healthier and exercising. The conscious mind can want to work on ourselves and do the deep work and the digging. But our subconscious mind is ultimately the one running the show. And the subconscious mind can say, nope, we're staying safe. We don't want to look at our patterns. We don't want to look at our stuff. It feels like it's too much. And so we self-sabotage, or we resist, or we procrastinate. Just know that that's your subconscious mind trying to keep you safe. That's not necessarily this really bad thing. And what you want to do to overcome that is you want to start lacing positive emotional associations repetitively to what you're doing. And this applies to everything. This applies to exercising. This applies to starting your business. If you're feeling overwhelmed, just start by thinking of the positive things that will come out of it and just do some repetition around that. This will help me strengthen my relationships. This will help me learn about myself. This will help me forgive and stop carrying the burden of resentment on my shoulders. This will help me open up more. This will help me have thriving relationships that actually last, where I feel seen and heard and understood, and I feel good in relationships. This will impact my self-esteem. This will help me feel safer in the world because I can set boundaries, I can communicate, I can meet my own needs. This will help me feel clearer about what I want for my future. This will, and the more you build in those positive emotional associations, you're actually programming your own subconscious mind to get motivated, because the brain naturally wants to move towards pleasure and avoid pain. So sometimes when we resist or procrastinate things, and again, this can apply to anything, it's because we associate discomfort with change, right? With doing something new, or with having the uncertainty of not knowing what can happen. And so when we can intentionally, remember, the subconscious is programmed through repetition and emotion, intentionally think of positive things that are pleasurable in relationship to the task we're trying to take on, and keep doing that repetitively, we actually kickstart our own subconscious mind into momentum. So really, really great question. Okay, so the next question I see here is Ava. Hi, Ava. How are you? So Ava says, can you give any tips to help guide my AP mom to become secure? She's too codependent. I became secure, so we clash. I was AP. Okay, great question. Here is my answer. A couple of things. Sorry, I was noticing some of the other comments in here. A couple of things. When you want to become secure, the first thing, it's interesting because different attachment styles sort of have main focuses that they should focus in on. For anxious preoccupied, I'll actually share what they are for all of them. But for anxious preoccupied, one of the first things is to end the cycle of self-abandonment. What happens with APs is that they're constantly in a state of abandoning themselves because they're putting other people's needs from them and approval of them ahead of their own feelings, thoughts, needs, opinions, and ideas. And so what happens is, it's like, let's pretend I go into a work meeting, and let's pretend I'm super anxious, preoccupied. And let's say I have a really important opinion, and I have something that I think can really make a project taken to the next level and can really be helpful. But then I don't want to interrupt anybody. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if my boss will like that I'm saying this. I don't know if my friend over here will think I'm stealing her thunder. I don't know what everybody will think of me. So I'm just not going to say anything. And it's actually this form of self-abandonment that happens, right? Same thing when we have a date. We're on a date and we have a preference, or we have an opinion, or we have a need that we want to share, but we repress it or stuff it down because we're like, no, I don't want to, come across as too needy or not needy, but too entitled, or I don't want somebody to, I want them to be happy so that they have a good time on the date. Who cares about me? All of those things are subtle forms of self-abandonment. And so one of the first things that anxious preoccupieds have to do is learn to make space for themselves, to really take up space in the world, to have needs, to listen to their own feelings and emotions, to treat themselves equally to others. And where they always want to start is with understanding their own needs and then learning to meet their own needs. Because if we feel like we can meet our own needs, part of why anxious preoccupied individuals feel like there's this actual survival threat for them when they feel abandoned is because they believe at a deep subconscious level that only other people can meet my needs for me. I can't meet my own needs. And so if you believe that, and imagine that to our subconscious mind, our needs are a sense of self, right? Our needs are how we survive. If we don't get our needs met in the world, we may not survive. And so what happens is, if we get into relationship dynamics where we want connection, we want closeness, and then we go, oh, okay, but I can't get any of this, only other people can give this to me, then the moment a connection or a relationship feels threatened, it feels like it's a potential death to self. And so now we feel like, oh my gosh, what if somebody abandons me? What if somebody leaves me? And it's terrifying to the anxious, preoccupied mind, because they associate at a subconscious level, if somebody abandons me, my needs may not be met at all. And so that's when all the neediness comes on, right? That's when the clinginess comes in. That's when they hold on too tight, or all these things can be the very things that create a relationship falling apart. And so what has to happen is the anxious, preoccupied individual needs to learn how to fill their cup halfway. And the analogy I often give to people is, it's like if you are running low on gas, and then you drive to a gas station and your tank is completely empty and the gas station's closed, it feels like an absolute panic. But if you're driving to a gas station and your tank is half filled and you're going to like top it off, then if the gas station's closed, you're like, oh, no problem. I'll just go to the next gas station. Like, it's fine. And the same idea happens with our relationships. If we, imagining that love, connection, all those different things are what fill our tank. If we have no way of filling our tank halfway through, then we need everybody to do it for us. We need those people, or we're going to be out of gas completely. And then who knows what's going to happen. Versus if we learn to get good at understanding our own needs, meeting our own needs, showing up for our own needs, communicating about our needs, sharing our thoughts and opinions, allowing ourselves to take up space and having boundaries, then all of a sudden, when people can't be there 100% of the time, which unfortunately relationships will never be perfect and people won't be able to be there 100% of the time, it doesn't feel like it's this absolute panic. And then a lot of those needy patterns of behavior don't have to happen. So that becomes a really important first part. Other parts are reprogramming core wounds. So reprogramming the wounds of I will be abandoned, I will be alone, I will be rejected, I am not good enough, I will be excluded, I will be disliked, I am unworthy, I will be unloved. Those are the big core wounds for anxious, preoccupied individuals, doing reprogramming around those things. So you're not seeing those things in your situations or assuming that will be the outcome of situations is very powerful as well. And the more you're doing that reprogramming work and then doing the needs work, the boundaries work, understanding yourself, building that relationship to your sense of self, doing reprogramming on self-esteem, those are all the core components to becoming secure. And once you become secure out of your attachment style, relationships are so much easier. They're easier, they're more empowering, they're more fun, they make more sense. And we get to have a relationship to ourselves and a relationship to other people as well. So really, really great question. Okay. So I said I was going to do this for about I think I said 30 minutes or something. And I do have a commitment coming up at 6:15. So I'm going to have to unfortunately wrap this up for today. If you guys want to join in, there's a 7-day free trial. I do 4 live webinars every single week with our students. It's on Zoom, but you don't have to be on Zoom. You can just be on like your camera off and type in the chat. And we do live Zoom questions and we do questions from the chat. So literally 4 of these, but it's a smaller group who comes in. So people get a lot of their questions answered. You can check it out. We have the link on the video from this morning, the link to the 7-day free trial. If you go to the YouTube channel and just search, I can actually I'll put a link in the description of this video after as well. Or if you just go to the page right now, let me see if I can find the link here and drop it in the chat. But basically, it's so funny. I went onto my YouTube channel and I see like the live webinar on here. So basically, feeling connected in your relationships. Here, I'll put it in the chat right here. So if you guys want to join on, check it out. We've got the live 4 webinars a week, and it is free for the first 7 days. Like I mentioned, like if you forget to cancel or something happens, all you have to do is email our customer service team, and they will still refund you. We don't try to like keep anybody's money. Like if you are in the situation, come in, join in, check out the different courses. I'm putting a few links in the chat below to the 7-day free trial. You can sign up now. Money back guarantee if you're not happy and if you accidentally get charged, no problem. And honestly, people come in and they love it. And we do 4 live webinars like this every single week. And then you've got 45 courses in there. And some of the big ones that I really recommend getting started with are the emotional mastery and belief reprogramming course. It shows you like the framework, like the blueprint of your subconscious mind and how to reprogram the beliefs that are causing you the most pain. The needs course, which is so important for our relationships. If we don't know our needs, how can we get our needs met from other people? How can we feel empowered? How can we feel like we're seen and heard and understood? So you'll discover your needs. You'll learn how to communicate them. Boundaries course is super important. How to release resentment and truly forgive. It's so awful to carry resentment in relationships. And it's so healing to be able to release this stuff by really doing deep forgiveness work and understanding that we don't just say we're going to forgive. We actually have to correct the underlying patterns in the relationship that are preventing us from forgiving. And then there's really great courses in there too about your attachment style and the 6 stages of relationships, reprogramming your attachment style with really detailed tools and workbooks. We've got our shadow work course in there, how to repair any relationship if you're in a bind right now in a relationship, a friendship, a family relationship, a romantic relationship, how to heal from a breakup if you're just recently out of a relationship. And we've got a great self-love course, codependency courses, all that good stuff. So check it out. I'll put a link again in the chat below. I'm really happy to say hi to everybody who is here for today. I really appreciate you. You guys jumping in here. I see people clicking like and putting some nice comments in here. So thank you. And I'm so happy just to connect with our community in here. What about my FA dog? Can you repair your relationship there? That's so funny. My dog is for sure anxiously attached. Anyways, hi guys. Hello to everybody who's also joining in. So I'm going to wrap this for today. If I will be doing one of these, like maybe every other month or so. I know it's kind of a ways away. I do 4 again every week in the school. Hi from New Brunswick. Amazing. And I really just wanted to share this with you guys so you can check out the school. You guys have the option to do so for free, 7 days, check everything out. Wow, from South Korea. Hello. Anyways, okay. Thank you guys all so much. And I want to let you guys know too, if you are posting comments on the YouTube videos with the videos you want to see, I actually have a team member now who one of their role, like one of what they do for like 10, 15 hours a week is literally just take the YouTube comments and YouTube suggestions from what our audience wants. And then put them into a report for me, and I make videos accordingly. So don't be afraid to put video suggestions in there all the time. And we actually do our courses like that inside the school as well. You'll see. Amazing. I'm so happy to hear that, Mel. That's amazing. Yeah, there's tons of stuff in there. We also have in there like social events and study groups that are available to everybody as just part of the thing that you can join in for free. So you can connect with people, you can do workbooks together with people. Like there's all kinds of cool resources in there. So if you join, make sure that when you join, you come to the webinars this week. I'll do 4 this week with our students inside of the school. 1 on Thursday, which is just open Q&A. Friday, we do bonus content, and then we do 2 on Saturday. 1 open Q&A and another bonus content where we still have Q&A at the end. And we've got all that good stuff. Yep, if you cancel your subscription right before your trial ends, you are not charged. And if you forget to cancel and you're like, oh no, I was charged, just email info@personaldevelopmentschool.com. We have that up everywhere inside, and you get a money back guarantee. Like there's no questions asked or anything if you decide you don't want to be a part of it. But a lot of people come in and really, really love it and stick around and then have all this growth and healing. So the times are 7:30 p.m. Eastern for our webinars inside the school this week on Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Friday. And then Saturday, we have 2 back-to-back, one at 2 till 3:30 and one from 3:30 till 4:30. We have an hour-long Q&A and then an hour and a half with like 45 minutes bonus content, 45 minutes Q&A. So we've got tons of stuff in there all the time. Hi, guys from Finland and Italy. And wow, so nice. B-snaps. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying. Thank you, Thomas. Anyways, thank you guys so much. I hope to see you guys in the webinars this weekend. And I hope you all have an amazing evening. Thank you, Amber. And I will see you guys soon. Bye, guys. Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.